Ethan had been to many galas before. As a human diplomat, he was used to these events. So the purpose was always the same: to negotiate, to make small talk, and to show that humans were capable of peace, capable of being part of the galaxy's grander plans. But tonight, things felt different. He wasn't sure why, but something about this particular event held in the palace of an alien species known as the Gathri had his heart racing. The Gathri were an ancient species, known for their wisdom and powerful influence over the galaxy. They had been around for thousands of years, long before humans had ever thought about reaching the stars. But despite their strength, the Gathari were always cautious about newcomers, and that made Ethan's mission even more difficult. The galaxy, it seemed, was still not fully ready to accept humans as equals. They were still considered newcomers, untested, and unpredictable. Ethan straightened his uniform as he entered the grand ballroom of the Gathri Palace. The ceilings were high, stretching up far beyond what he could see. Ornate columns lined the room. The floor beneath his feet gleamed with a smoothness that reflected the elegant lights hanging above. The music played softly, a mix of strange instruments he couldn't quite place. The air smelled rich with exotic scents, something sweet mixed with a faint trace of something metallic. He wasn't sure whether to feel awe or nervousness, but he pushed those feelings aside. Tonight wasn't about him. It was about humanity. He made his way toward the center of the room, where groups of dignitaries were mingling. Alien faces surrounded him, most of them unfamiliar, their forms as diverse as the galaxy itself. Some had scales, others were covered in fur, and still others were entirely unrecognizable, their features alien in ways Ethan could never describe. He had been trained for this, how to speak with all types of alien species, how to behave in formal settings, but tonight, his attention kept drifting. Then he saw her. At first, it was only her presence that drew him in. She was standing by a tall window, looking out at the stars beyond, the dim light of the ballroom making her appear almost otherworldly. Her skin was a soft shade of pale blue, her features sharp yet graceful. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen before. She wore a dark purple dress that shimmered like the night sky. The fabric moved with her, as though it were alive, reflecting the starlight outside. Her long hair flowed like liquid silver, cascading down her back in delicate waves. Ethan tried to look away, but something about her drew him in, compelling him to approach. His footsteps felt heavier than usual as he walked toward her, his heart picking up the pace. "Excuse me," he said, unsure of what to say next. She turned toward him, her eyes meeting his. They were a deep, mesmerizing shade of violet, and for a moment, Ethan felt like he was drowning in them. She raised an eyebrow, clearly waiting for him to speak. "I just wanted to say, you look stunning in that dress," he said, his voice almost trembling. The words left his lips before he could stop them, and he immediately regretted them. It was a cliché, something he should have said more diplomatically. But instead of the expected coldness or dismissal, her lips curled into a slight, mysterious smile. "Thank you, human," she replied, her voice smooth. Like velvet, Ethan couldn't help but notice how her words felt like more than just a polite response. There was something else there, something that seemed to linger in the air between them. It wasn't just the compliment. It was her smile, the way her eyes never left his. The silence stretched for a moment, making him feel both exposed and strangely connected. "I'm Arya," she continued, her tone shifting, now more intimate. "And you must be the diplomat I've heard so much about." Ethan nodded, surprised that she knew who he was. "Yes, I'm Ethan. It's an honor to meet you." Arya took a small step closer, her eyes never leaving his. There was something about her presence that made everything else in the room fade into the background. The noise, the laughter, the chatter, they all became distant, like they were on the other side of a thick glass. It was just him and her now, and for some reason, Ethan felt like there was more to this moment than just a casual conversation. "So, diplomat, what is it you truly seek from my people?" she asked softly, her tone taking on a more serious edge. Ethan blinked, caught off guard by her sudden shift. I've come to represent humanity. We're eager to join the galactic community, to show that we're capable of being more than just another species fighting for survival." She regarded him for a moment, her eyes scanning him as if she were looking for something deeper than the words he spoke. Ethan couldn't figure out what it was, but her gaze was intense, focused, and, "You think your people are ready for that?" she asked. He paused, his thoughts scrambling. "We are." "I believe we are," he said, more confident than he felt. "Humanity has faced many challenges. We've survived wars, we've united in ways that were once thought impossible. I think we can bring something valuable to the table." Arya tilted her head slightly, her eyes narrowing with curiosity. Then, without a word, she turned and began to walk toward the large doors on the far side of the room. Ethan hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to follow, but something told him that this was a moment he couldn't let slip away. He walked after her, his footsteps quieter now, almost cautious. When they reached the door, she glanced back at him and, without warning, quietly locked it behind them. The sound of the lock clicking into place was like a signal, something that told Ethan that this was no longer just a casual conversation. Something had shifted, and he wasn't sure whether he was about to take part in a new chapter of galactic history or something far more personal. But one thing was clear: this encounter with Arya was not going to be what he expected. Ethan's mind was racing. He stood there, staring at the locked door behind him, the faint sound of the gala continuing on the other side. What had just happened? Arya, the alien woman with the mesmerizing violet eyes, had led him away from the crowd and now, without any warning, locked the door. His pulse quickened as uncertainty flooded him. What was her game? Was this part of the plan? Or was something more at play? "Please sit," Arya said, her voice smooth but firm, cutting through his thoughts. She gestured toward a low, elegant couch in the center of the room. Ethan hesitated for a moment before slowly walking toward the couch. The room was dimly lit, with only the soft glow of the distant stars filtering through the large windows. The air was cool, and the quiet hum of the palace's inner workings was the only sound. It felt like they were the only two people left in the universe, and yet Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that there was a hidden weight to this moment. He sat down, keeping his hands clenched on his lap, trying to steady his breathing. Arya, on the other hand, moved with the grace of someone used to commanding attention, each step deliberate and measured. She wasn't just beautiful. There was an undeniable power in the way she held herself. Her presence filled the room, and Ethan couldn't help but wonder what kind of woman she truly was. There was more to her than met the eye. He felt like he was only scratching the surface. "You seem nervous, Ethan," she said, with a slight smile, almost as if she enjoyed seeing him a little off balance. Her tone was calm, yet it carried a sense of something unspoken, something she wasn't ready to reveal yet. I don't know what to make of this," Ethan confessed, his voice betraying a hint of uncertainty. "I thought we were just having a conversation, but now, this locking the door, ... Arya's smile softened, and she sat beside him on the couch, close enough that he could feel the heat of her body. She didn't seem to notice the tension she was causing, or perhaps she was enjoying it. "Don't worry, Ethan," she said quietly. "I'm not here to harm you. I'm here to talk. And perhaps, to help you understand something." Ethan glanced at her, trying to read her face, her eyes. Was she playing a game with him, or was this something more? He couldn't tell, but the mystery only deepened. "I don't understand," he admitted. "You're a princess, a powerful being, yet you locked the door like we're about to face something dangerous. What is this about? Why am I here?" Arya didn't answer right away. She leaned back against the cushions, folding her arms across her chest as she stared at him. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Ethan could feel his heart beating in his chest, his mind racing with questions that didn't have answers. Finally, Arya spoke, her voice softer now, almost thoughtful. "Humanity is an interesting species, Ethan. You have your flaws, of course, like every other race. But there is something in you that none of us have been able to ignore. You are unpredictable, yes, but also incredibly resilient. Your ability to survive against all odds, against enemies, against yourselves, makes you a force to be reckoned with." Ethan was taken aback. He had never heard an alien speak so plainly. About humanity before? I don't understand. Why are you telling me this? Arya turned her gaze toward the stars outside the window, her eyes distant, as if searching for something in the vastness of space. Because you need to understand. What's coming, Ethan? What humanity will face, you'll need to prepare, and so will the galaxy. The galaxy. Ethan repeated, trying to grasp the magnitude of her words. What do you mean? Arya's eyes met his again, and for the first time, Ethan saw a flicker of something deeper in her gaze sphere. Perhaps, or maybe sorrow. I mean that the peace we've all fought for, the balance that has kept the galaxy from falling into chaos, it's in danger. And you humans will be the ones to tip the scales. Ethan's mind raced as he tried to piece together the implications of her words. But how? We're just starting to make our mark in the galaxy. We're not warriors. We're diplomats. Traitors. Arya shook her head, a sad smile playing on her lips. You underestimate yourselves, but you're not alone in this. Your people are not the only ones who will shape the future. There are others, and they will play their part. But it is you who will lead the way. It is you who will decide whether the galaxy is saved or lost. Ethan couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. The weight of her words was like a storm cloud hanging over him. How could humanity be expected to carry the burden of the galaxy? They were still learning, still growing. But Arya's words carried an authority that made him feel as if he were standing on the edge of something much larger than himself. What do you want from me? Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Arya's expression softened. She leaned in closer to him, her eyes never leaving his. I want you to listen, to understand that the time for hiding is over. Humanity has a role to play, and I believe that you are ready. But you need to know the truth of what lies ahead. She stood up slowly, her movements fluid and graceful, before turning toward the window. Ethan stood as well, not sure if he was ready for what she was about to say. But he knew he couldn't leave, not now. It's not after hearing what she had said. Truth, Arya began, her voice low but firm, is that humanity will face a choice that will determine whether you join the galaxy as its equals or become its greatest enemy. And it will start with you, Ethan. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. What kind of choice? Arya didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked out at the stars again, her gaze distant, as if she were seeing something far beyond what was visible. A choice that will change everything. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Ethan's pulse spiked, and he glanced at Arya. She didn't seem surprised, but her expression hardened. They've found us. Who? Ethan asked quickly, his mind already racing. The ones who don't want the truth to be known. Arya replied, her voice grim. And they won't stop until they silence us. Ethan felt a rush of panic, but he forced himself to stay calm. What do we do now? Arya turned toward him, her eyes determined. Now we leave. Before it's too late. The tension between Ethan and Arya grew stronger as they moved quickly through the dark, narrow corridors of the palace. The sounds of the soldiers' footsteps were distant now, but Ethan could still hear the pounding of his own heart. He wasn't sure what had just happened, but one thing was clear. Everything had changed in the blink of an eye. The simple diplomatic mission had turned into something much bigger. Something he didn't fully understand yet. Arya moved ahead of him, her pace steady and confident. She didn't seem worried or panicked, even though they were being hunted. Ethan couldn't help but admire her calmness. There was a power about her that was undeniable. Something he hadn't expected from someone who appeared so calm and composed. They reached a small, hidden room at the far end of the corridor. Arya entered first, checking the space before giving Ethan a quick nod. She gestured for him to follow, and he stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The room was dimly lit, with only a few glowing lights along the walls. It was bare, with no furniture or decorations, just a simple space, meant for hiding, it seemed. Arya moved to a console in the corner and began typing quickly, her fingers flying over the controls. Ethan stood there, unsure of what to do. He had so many questions, and yet he didn't know where to start. Why had Arya locked the door earlier? What was so important about him? Why had the soldiers come for them? What was this truth she had mentioned? You going to tell? Me, what's really going on? Ethan asked, breaking the silence. He tried to keep his voice steady, but there was a hint of frustration in his words. Arya didn't look up from the console, but her voice was calm when she replied. I'm trying to figure out how to get us out of here, Ethan. You don't need to worry about the details right now. Ethan took a step closer, his eyes fixed on her. I think I have the right to know. You've dragged me into something bigger than I could have imagined. You locked that door, and now you're telling me we're running from soldiers. If I'm supposed to play a role in all this, I need to understand why. Arya paused, her fingers hovering over the console. She didn't answer right away, as if weighing his words carefully. Finally, she turned to face him, her violet eyes locking with his. You're right, she said softly. You do deserve to know. Ethan felt a mix of relief and confusion. Finally, he might get some answers, but his mind was still reeling. From everything that had happened so far, the truth is complicated, Ethan. Arya began, her voice barely above a whisper. Humanity isn't just another species in the galaxy. You have a unique role to play. It's not just about diplomacy or trade deals. It's about survival and a choice that you and your people will have to make. Ethan frowned, trying to process her words. Survival? What choice? Arya sighed and stepped away from the console. She walked over to the small window, staring out at the stars beyond. You've heard the stories about the Gatheri, about our power and influence. You've held the galaxy together for centuries, guiding the different species toward peace. But there are forces out there, others, who want control, who want to reshape everything. And they won't stop until they get what they want. Ethan's mind was spinning. So what does this have to do with humanity? Why are we involved? Arya turned back to him, her expression serious. Because the choices you make will decide everything. There's a force, an ancient power, that no one wants to acknowledge. It's been hidden for centuries, but it's growing stronger. Your people will either help stop it or become its first victims. Ethan was struggling to understand. This ancient power, what is it, and why us? It's a power that can change the balance of the galaxy, Arya explained. Something that can destroy or control entire civilizations. And the reason humanity is at the center of all of this is because you have something the other species don't have, the ability to adapt, to survive. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You're telling me that we're some kind of key to stopping this power? Arya nodded. Yes and no. You see, Ethan, humanity has always been underestimated. Your people have faced war, disease, and conflict, but you keep coming back stronger. The galaxy fears you because of that. And that fear has made some people take drastic measures. Ethan shook his head. But we're still learning. We're still figuring things out. We're not ready for something like this. Arya took a deep breath, her gaze softening. I know. But you will be. You have no choice but to be. The galaxy has been at peace for so long, but that peace is fragile. There are forces out there who want to break it, and they won't stop until they do. Humanity is the only one who can stop them. Ethan's mind was reeling. He'd always thought of his mission as one of simple diplomacy, talking, negotiating, trying to bridge gaps. But this was far beyond what he had imagined. He wasn't just a diplomat. He was somehow tied to something much bigger. Didn't know if he was ready, but it didn't seem like he had a choice. What do we do now? He asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Arya turned back to the console, her fingers dancing across the controls once more. We run. We need to get to a safe place, somewhere the council can't find us. Once we're safe, we'll figure out how to stop this, how to protect humanity. Ethan swallowed hard. And what happens if we can't stop it? Arya didn't look up from the console, but her voice was steady. Then everything you know will change. The galaxy will fall into chaos, and humanity will be at the center of it. The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Ethan wasn't sure if he was ready for what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. There was no turning back now. He was part of something much bigger, and whether he was ready or not, he had a role to play. Arya pressed a final key, and the console beeped. The door in front of them slid open, revealing a narrow hallway beyond. We're not safe yet, she said, her voice low. But this is just the beginning, Ethan. Stay close. Don't trust anyone outside this room. Ethan nodded, his mind still racing. He wasn't sure if he was ready for this, but as he followed Arya down the hallway, he knew one thing for sure. His life would never be the same. The narrow hallway stretched out in front of Ethan, its walls made of cold, smooth stone. Arya moved quickly ahead of him, her footsteps soft but purposeful. Ethan kept close, his mind racing with all the information she had just shared. With so much, he still didn't understand. What was this ancient power she had spoken about? Why did humanity have a key role in stopping it, and what did the council want with them? He couldn't shake the feeling that he had been dragged into something far beyond his control. They reached another door, smaller than the one they had just passed through. Arya pressed a button beside it, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. It revealed a small room, dark and quiet, but for the dim red lights that cast an eerie glow over everything. Inside, there was a single chair, and on the floor, a rug of intricate design. This will be our temporary refuge, Arya said, her voice steady. But her eyes were hard, betraying the weight of the situation. We'll stay here until we know. Our next move? Ethan stepped into the room, still trying to process everything that had happened so far. So, what's the plan now? He asked, his voice shaky. He didn't want to seem weak, but everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. Arya closed the door behind him and turned to face him. Wait. We need to see if anyone knows we're here. If the council sends more soldiers after us, we'll need to move quickly. I've activated a security lock on the door, but we're not safe yet. Ethan nodded, though he couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. The calmness in Arya's voice didn't match the chaos he felt inside. Everything around him seemed too quiet, too controlled. His mind kept drifting back to the conversation they'd had earlier, the one about humanity being the key to everything. But how? He felt like a pawn in a game he didn't fully understand. Arya seemed to sense his confusion. She stepped closer to him, her eyes softening. I know this is a lot to take in, and I know you're scared. You have to trust me. I won't let anything happen to you. Ethan met her gaze. I don't know who to trust anymore. You're telling me things that sound impossible, and I don't know how I'm supposed to be a part of all this. I'm just a diplomat, Arya. I didn't sign up for whatever this is. Arya smiled faintly, though there was no humor in it. No one signs up for this. But you're here now. You're part of this, whether you like it or not. And I believe that you can handle it. Ethan sighed and sat down. On the floor, trying to calm his racing thoughts. I'm not sure I believe that. I'm just trying to keep up with everything that's happening. There was a long pause. The only sound in the room was the soft hum of the security system. Arya, standing just a few feet away, appeared to be lost in thought, her gaze fixed on the distant stars outside the window. Ethan took the opportunity to collect his thoughts. So, what happens next? He asked, his voice quieter now. Arya turned back to him, her expression unreadable. Next, we prepare for the worst. The council is powerful, and they don't like losing control. They'll come after us, whether they know where we are or not. You have to stay one step ahead of them. Ethan leaned back against the wall, his mind still reeling from everything. He felt like he was in over his head. He had only come to this alien planet to represent humanity, to make peace, not to get caught up in a galactic power struggle. Da 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 The more Arya spoke, the more he realized that humanity's place in the galaxy was far more important than he had ever imagined. There's something you haven't told me, Ethan said suddenly, his voice tinged with suspicion. This ancient power you talked about, what exactly is it? And why is humanity the key? Arya was silent for a moment, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. I can't explain everything right now, but I'll tell you this. There is an ancient energy that has been dormant for centuries. It's something that the galaxy has tried to keep hidden, but it's waking up. And when it does, it could either save the galaxy or destroy it. Humanity, with your adaptability and resilience, is the only one who can stop it. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. That sounds like something out of a nightmare. How are we supposed to stop it? Arya's eyes darkened. I don't know yet, but we're running out of time. That's why the Council is so determined. To stop us, they know what's coming. They know that humanity's potential could be the key to either stopping this power or unlocking its full force. Ethan stood up, pacing the room. I'm not a hero. I'm just a man caught up in something I don't understand. I don't know if I can do this. I don't even know where to start. Arya walked over to him, her hand resting gently on his arm. Don't have to do it alone. You have allies, and you'll find others who will fight alongside you. But you have to make the choice, Ethan. You have to choose whether you'll run from this or face it head on. If you want humanity to survive, you have to be willing to make sacrifices. Ethan turned to her, his eyes filled with doubt. Sacrifices? What kind of sacrifices? Arya hesitated before speaking, her voice low. The kind that might cost you everything. Your life. Your future. Everything you thought you knew about the galaxy and about humanity will be turned upside down. You'll have to make a choice that could either save us all, or doom us. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He was in the middle of something far bigger than he had ever imagined. There was no way out now. Whatever lay ahead, he would have to face it whether he was ready or not. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, a loud bang echoed from the door, followed by a series of rapid knocks. His heart skipped a beat. They've found us, Arya whispered, her eyes wide with urgency. It's time to move. Ethan's heart raced as he looked at her. There was no more time for questions. The fight was coming, and he had no choice but to face it. The loud bang at the door echoed through the small, hidden room. Ethan's heart skipped a beat, and Arya's expression hardened. Without a word, she moved quickly to the window, her eyes scanning the surroundings outside. Ethan stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. The danger was real now. The soldiers had found them, and the feeling of being hunted was heavier than ever. Get to the door, Arya ordered, her voice calm but urgent. Ethan snapped back to reality. He rushed to the door, standing beside Arya. He watched her move. With quick, confident movements, her fingers already pressing a series of buttons on the wall. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a narrow, dimly lit corridor. It looked like a hidden escape route, designed to be discreet and fast. Arya motioned for him to follow. We don't have much time, Arya said, her voice barely above a whisper. Stay close, and don't make a sound. The soldiers are already outside. If we're caught, it will be the end. Ethan nodded, the gravity of her words sinking in, had no choice now but to trust her. This was no longer about diplomacy or peaceful negotiations. This was about survival. They moved swiftly through the corridor, the walls pressing in on them as they navigated. The winding passage. Arya led the way, her footsteps light but fast. Ethan stayed right behind her, trying to match her pace. His mind raced with questions, but there was no time to ask. The soldiers were close, and they couldn't afford to be caught as they turned. A corner, Arya stopped abruptly, holding her hand up for silence. Ethan froze, his breath caught in his throat. He could hear footsteps, heavy, purposeful, coming down the hall, toward them. Arya's eyes locked onto his, and she motioned for him to stay still. They pressed themselves into the shadows, there, bodies blending into the dark corners of the passage. Ethan's heart was pounding, and every muscle in his body screamed to move, but he forced himself to stay still. The footsteps grew louder, closer, and then finally, they stopped, just a few feet away from where they were hiding. Arya's eyes never left the soldiers as they passed, their voices low and tense. Ethan held his breath, praying they wouldn't be discovered. The soldiers moved on, their boots echoing down the hall, and the silence that followed felt like a relief. Arya slowly exhaled, her grip tightening on Ethan's arm. "We have to move now," she whispered, and without another word. They continued down the passage. Ethan's thoughts were a blur, but he focused on keeping up with Arya. She moved through the maze of corridors as if she had done it 100 times before, every turn sharp and decisive. Ethan was amazed at how she seemed to know the palace so well. It was as though she had been preparing for this moment for years. They reached another door, smaller and more concealed than the others. Arya quickly worked the lock, her fingers moving with practiced speed. The door opened silently, and they stepped into a dark room. Ethan could see nothing at first, but as his eyes adjusted, he realized they were in a storage room of some kind. It was filled with crates, equipment, and strange alien technology. Arya stepped aside, allowing Ethan to enter first. She followed him inside, closing the door softly behind them. The room smelled faintly of dust and oil, and the air felt thick with tension. "Are we safe here?" Ethan asked, his voice low. "For now," Arya replied, "but not for long." "Need to get to the transport ship? It's waiting for us, but we have to move quickly. The soldiers won't stop looking for us until they've caught us, and they're smart. They'll search every room, every hallway. Can't afford to stay here too long." Ethan nodded, but the fear in his chest didn't subside. He had never been in a situation like this before. It felt surreal, like a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. But this wasn't a dream. This was real, and the stakes were higher than he could have ever imagined. Arya moved to a small console against the wall and began typing in a series of commands. The screen flickered to life, showing a map of the palace and the surrounding areas. Ethan stepped closer, trying to get a better look. "We're here." Arya pointed to a red dot on the map. "The transport ship is on the outskirts of the palace grounds, just beyond the west wing. If we can get there without being seen, we'll be safe." Ethan studied the map, his mind racing. "What if the soldiers are waiting for us outside?" "It won't be," Arya said, her voice calm. "I've already disabled the palace's security systems in this area. Yeah, the transport will be hidden from their radar. We'll have to move quickly, but if we stay focused, we can make it." Ethan's heart raced as he processed what she was saying. "And if we don't?" Arya didn't answer right away. She simply stared at the map, her face set in a hard expression. "Then we'll have no choice but to fight." The weight of her words hung in the air, and Ethan couldn't help but feel the weight of the decision on his shoulders. He had never been in a battle before. He had been trained for diplomacy, for peace. But this, this was different. This was survival. "Go," Arya said, breaking the silence. She turned toward the door, and Ethan followed her, his nerves on edge. They moved through the palace as quickly and quietly as they could, each step bringing them closer to the transport ship and their only chance of escape. They passed through empty hallways, avoiding the soldiers who were still searching for them. The tension was unbearable, but they didn't stop. Arya was focused, her mind set on their goal. Ethan could only follow, trusting that she knew what she was doing. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the exit. Arya opened a hidden door, and they stepped out into the cool night air. The transport ship was waiting for them, just as Arya had promised. It was sleek and quiet, hidden in the shadows of the palace walls. "We made it," Ethan breathed, a sense of relief washing over him. "For now," Arya replied, her voice still tense. "We're not out of danger." Yet, the transport's hatch opened, and Arya gestured for Ethan to climb aboard. He didn't hesitate. This was their only chance. As they boarded the ship, the hatch closed behind them, sealing them inside. Arya moved to the controls, her fingers flying over the buttons. The ship hummed to life, and within moments they were lifting off the ground. As they soared into the night sky, Ethan looked out the window, watching the palace grow smaller and smaller in the distance. They were free for now, but he knew that this was only the beginning. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it with Arya by his side. Together. They had escaped the palace. But the real battle was just beginning. The hum of the transport ship filled the air as it moved swiftly through the night sky, carrying Ethan and Arya far from the palace. The world outside the small window was dark, the stars shining brightly as they flew further into the unknown. Ethan leaned back in his seat, still trying to process everything that had happened. His mind was overwhelmed with questions about the ancient power Arya had spoken of, about humanity's role in the galaxy, and about the dangerous path they had just begun to walk. Arya sat in the pilot's seat, her fingers moving quickly over the ship's controls. Her face was focused, but Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders. She was still the calm, controlled figure he had first met, but there was a hardness in her eyes now. The mission was far from over, and the weight of their situation was becoming heavier with every passing minute. "Where are we going?" Ethan asked, his voice breaking the silence. He had been silent for a while, lost in his thoughts. But now he needed answers. He had no idea what the next step was, or where they were heading. Arya didn't look at him immediately, but her voice was steady when she replied. "We're heading to a safe location, a place where we can regroup and plan our next move. The council will stop at nothing to find us, and we need to be ready." Ethan nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. They were running out of time. The council wasn't just a group of political leaders, they were a powerful force, and they would not let Arya and Ethan escape without a fight. He didn't know how long they had before the soldiers tracked them down again, but every minute felt like a lifetime. "I still don't understand," Ethan said, his frustration creeping into his voice. "What is this ancient power you keep talking about? What is it, and why are we the ones who have to stop it?" Arya's fingers paused over the controls, and she finally turned to face him. Her eyes were filled with a mix of sadness and determination. And for the first time, Ethan saw the true weight of the burden she carried. "The power I spoke of is not something that can be easily explained." She began slowly. "It's an energy, ancient and vast, older than the galaxy itself. It has the ability to shape reality, to bend the very fabric of space and time. It was locked away long ago by the first beings who discovered it. But now, after centuries of peace, it is waking up again. And when it does, it will change everything." Ethan's heart sank as he listened to her words. The idea of such a powerful force, one that could change reality itself, was terrifying. He had seen what war could do, what destruction and violence could bring, but this was something different. This was beyond anything he had ever imagined. "So what does that mean for humanity?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. "What does it mean for us?" Arya's eyes were filled with a quiet intensity as she spoke. "I mean that humanity has a role to play, whether you're ready for it or not. You are the only species capable of stopping this power. You have the strength, the adaptability to face it. But you also have something that no other species has: a unique perspective, a willingness to change, to evolve in ways that others cannot." Ethan shook his head. "Don't feel like I have anything special. I'm just a diplomat. I was sent here to represent Earth, to make peace. I didn't ask for any of this." Arya's gaze softened, and she stood up, walking over to where Ethan was sitting. She placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch reassuring, but firm. "You don't have to understand it all right now," she said gently. "But the truth is, Ethan, humanity's survival is tied to the choices you make. You have something no one else has: the ability to change things, to see the bigger picture when others are too blinded by fear and power. That's why the council fears you. That's why they want to stop you, because they know that humanity could tip the balance of the entire galaxy." Ethan swallowed hard, the weight of her words pressing down on him. He wasn't sure if he believed in his own potential to change the galaxy, but he knew one thing for sure. He had no choice but to try. The fate of countless lives rested in his hands now, and the thought of failing was too much to bear. "So what do we do now?" he asked, his voice quiet but determined. "How do we stop this ancient power?" Arya sighed and sat down beside him, her expression thoughtful. "We need to find the source of this power. We need to find where it is and stop it before it can fully awaken. But that won't be easy. There are others who will try to use it for their own purposes, people. who believe that controlling it will give them power beyond anything they can imagine. And the Council? Ethan asked. The Council will do whatever it takes to keep the power hidden, Arya said, her voice hardening. They know that if it gets out of control, they will lose their grip on the galaxy. They are willing to do anything to prevent that from happening, even if it means destroying everything in their path. Ethan leaned back in his seat, trying to absorb everything she had just told him. It was a lot to take in, and the fear of the unknown weighed heavily on him. But there was one thing he knew for sure: he couldn't back down now. Too many lives depended on the choices they made. Where do we even start? Ethan asked, his voice steady, despite the fear that was growing inside him. Arya glanced at the map on the ship's console, her expression hardening with resolve. We start by finding the one person who knows where the power is hidden. A former member of the Council, a woman named Zira. She's been on the run for years, but she has the knowledge we need. If we can find her, she'll be able to guide us. Ethan nodded. He didn't know who Zira was, but he could see the determination in Arya's eyes. If she believed this woman was the key to stopping the ancient power, then Ethan would do whatever it took to find her. We'll find her, Ethan said quietly, and we'll stop this. Arya smiled faintly, her eyes filled with quiet pride. I knew you'd understand. Humanity has more power than it knows, and now it's time to use it. The ship soared through the stars, the journey ahead uncertain. But one thing was clear: this was just the beginning. Ethan had no idea what the future held, but he knew that whatever came next, he would face it with Arya by his side.
Together.
They would face the ancient power and the Council that sought to control it. The fate of the galaxy rested in their hands, and they would not back down.